Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regular podcast called Knowledge Empowers. With you today is Kat. 안녕하세요. Then we have Baruš.
Hello.
And we have Koláč.
Hello, čaute všetci.
Now we were doing a string of diversity topics. And we tackled numerous minority groups. Here comes the next one. AKA generation gaps. And I'm going to start as in the oldest person in this group. I'm so proud
oldest,
to say it.
oldest.
When me and Koláč, we were going for coffee, and the lady asked me whether Koláč is my son.
Oh.
And I almost fainted. I'm like, oh. And honestly, my reaction was like, do I look that old, or he looks that young? And I asked her this, and she struggled. She was like, what? So ever since then, we keep saying that Koláč is my son and I'm his mom. So
I don't know. Some people are just blind. I think they are just not good at telling age.
I am one of those guys. I mean, it's like I can't even guess. Like, even the range is problem. You know, like whether it's from. It's really obvious from 0 to 10, from 10 to 20. But afterwards, I'm always like, even between 10 and 20, I'm like, is that 12 years old person, 14, 16, 18? And then it's like all scrabble. And then I realized just like I can see like 20 years maybe differences. That 30, that's 50. And that's really fun to spot, pretty easy to spot. But other than that, I'm really age blind when it comes to that. But what do you mean by this generation gap? It's like some generation is missing, or what? You know, like there are no people in their 30s, or what does it mean?
So usually generation gap is, and we had it in our previous company. So to have a healthy company is good if you have balance between all ages, meaning that, like you've said, that there isn't just like millennials or Gen Z, and then let's say the baby boomers, those who were born like in the 60s, you would have just 5%, and the rest would be millennials, for example. So there is a huge age difference among of all employees, and what can happen is that those who are older and, let's say, wiser or have lots of experiences, no matter of what they would want, because the younger generation is vast majority, would simply not listen to them because they would overrun the older generation. So it's much better if you have a balance between all the generation. Or another thing can happen if you have such a big gap, so literally one generation is missing, they don't know how to communicate to one another. The youngers think of these guys are too old, but they don't know anything about the latest technology, blah blah blah, and vice versa. It's like the elders like, are these young people, they just don't listen, they don't want to learn from the wiser people, and literally there is just clash, and they just don't want to again talk to one another.
Basically, it's a cultural gap between generations, even though they might come from the same countries, even same families.
Yep.
There is like this misunderstanding based on values that is given in that specific generation. Because, which is funny because, for example, there could be generation gap between, for example, me and my parent. Which is really, really funny because I think those people raised you, right? So they have certain values, but at the same time, you are not only raised by your parents, you're also raised by society and like the environment, situations you meet along as you are growing up. So sometimes those values are really opposite. And that's why sometimes you can see it that older people don't understand younger people. They say like, oh my God, these young people, they always use mobile phones and they don't talk to each other. It's horrible, blah, 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 blah. So
Yeah,
so that's
then
a
you see a
generation.
picture from history where everybody's in the metro reading the papers, nobody's talking to anybody. And like, well, that's not really a difference. just the medium has changed. Instead of looking on a screen, it was a paper before. So I don't know. Okay. So it's something like the diversity when it comes to the age and experience. Combination of these two.
Basically, values.
Yes, values. Just and that each group doesn't want to talk to one another. Did you see it?
Or is not able
Baruš?
to.
Did you see it in China?
Yes, a lot.
Have you seen it in China?
Because the situation in China, when you look at the history of China, the environment and the conditions for parents growing up and grandparents growing up were so vastly different from how young people grow up in China now. So basically how people in China grow up now, it's similar as other Western countries. You go to school, you have computers, you learn different languages, and this is something that the older generations didn't have during the revolution, right? Like many of them, they have just basic education, and they didn't even go to high school. If you went to high school, you didn't go to university. You didn't have a lot to choose from when to eat. You didn't have such a luxury as people in China have today. And at the same time, like when you had a job, you were lucky and you weren't like thinking about changing it. While today, like people have different standards in China, and they want to keep that standard, of course. And for example, one good example is like you would say that you need a lot of money to raise a child in China today, which is true. But of course, it wasn't cheap, let's say 30, 40, 50 years ago as well. But still, parents had, let's say, 3, 4, 5 kids, no problem, right? They didn't look at it like, oh my God, that they will have no education or something like this if I have no money. Of course, they wanted the best for them, but it still didn't stop them from from having kids. So, but now, even like the Chinese government allow couples to have more than 1 kid. They actually allow 2 and recently even 3. Young parents that already have a kid, they are like, no way. Like there is no way I will afford to send a second kid to a great university. And if they don't have great university, what they will become, like they have no chance in this world, in China at least. So that's a very different thinking and different situation that the previous generations had.
Sure,
I think that I would switch it more to not really consume world, but more for education, or how is it? Like usually it is that the more educated you are, the less kids you have. It's like it's sort of like you can imagine the full-on responsibility, and that you want for the kid the best, better, or but really from the education perspective that they could get based on their capabilities, etc. And you literally, if you have education, you literally make the decision, I will not have a kid, or just 1, and that's it.
True.
Because either I don't have enough money to support it, or blah blah blah. And
there are more factors than just education. The other things are the health systems and economical systems, because what we see is that you are having more kids because you are not sure if the kids will survive, so you are making more of those. and the economic situation influences it as well, because when the economics is bad and the only living you have is from the field you have, you need somebody to work on it later on when you are old. So you're making kids so they can help you out when you are elderly. So you are making more kids so that they can
You're making slaves.
sort of, yeah,
Creating a
you
slice for
can
yourself.
consider it that way. But on the other hand, from the other perspective, it's a family value. Like we value each other when it comes to the family. So it's not just education. There is a combination of these factors, and I think that somebody was explaining it on TED videos that when it comes to more developed countries, as you said, Kat, there is a lower number of kids being born. So that's actually, that was the proposal of the speaker, that to lower the population on the globe, we need to bring other countries when it comes to the development in their healthcare systems or economics or something like that. So
Or education.
that education, that will lower the birth rate, and actually the population will stabilize, if not even decline.
I'm going to switch a little bit the generation gap from a little bit of a work back to work in the previous company, and I'll share with you a few stories when I really felt old. That was the first time I really felt my age. And normally I don't look at my number because it's a big number, but I still think I'm like 16, behaving like a 16-year-old teenager. But to me, really strikes. So being a team leader or manager, and you're responsible for the team. And of course, in a contract you have, for example, you need to start at 9 a.m. And so you're expecting that employees will come to work at 9 a.m. And once a guy was really late, I think he arrived around 11. And I spoke to him like, he's supposed to be here by 9, and his reaction, his answer was like, Kat, but when I didn't want to go to school, I simply didn't go. And it just, I was speechless. I started stuttering. I was like, what? And so I really had to think of something like, what? So I said, you know what? I just feel like I don't want to pay you a salary, so I will not pay you a salary. And then he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's exactly a stupid answer, like the same stupid answer you just provided me. You sign a contract. This is a legal document between the company and yourself, where you committed that you will come to work and work from 9 to 5. That's it. And yes, if you need something or whatever, you can take vacation. You have 20 days of vacation. You can take a sick leave, blah, 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 blah. What kind of answer is this? If I didn't want to go to school, I just didn't go. Well, here are consequences if you don't come to work. That simple as that.
I still can imagine. I mean, like, good for you that you're not in school anymore, like that's great for you,
So it's really like,
I just wonder if it was actually generation gap, because I don't know, this person you described.
He was 20. No, he was 25. And I was already way over my 30. And I was even thinking like, that would never even come to my mind, because at least the way I was growing up, or how my mom said I need to be, whether it was school or whatever, you have obligation towards either the person or the school or the entity, etc. And you have made commitments. So if school starts at 7:30, you'll be there at 7:30. End of discussion. The consequence was, if I wouldn't come to school in time and I came home, that would be the consequence. AKA I would be slapped. So at work, the consequence is you either lose the job, or you will not get paid, or there can be, I don't know, they will not give you home office, blah, blah, blah. There can be other consequences. But these are really things that I really felt old. Like, what kind of answer is that? So it was really, really strange.
But what made you feel old? Do you think like older generation of that
For me,
guy?
I felt old that thing would never even occur in my mind.
But why do you think it's?
But the young people, they come up with this different kind of to me, strange stories. And it just created that feeling in me. I feel old.
Okay.
Okay, but then it brings me a question to me, because it happens, like we have new technologies, we have a new mindset. Right now there is this buzzword sustainability, or ecology, that we need to be more environmental because our planet is dying, or we are taking too many resources or whatsoever, or there is a climate change and we need to be more mindful about the climate. We need to be mindful about our emotions, that the work is not anymore transactional, that we just come and do the work and that's it, but it's more about the relationships, etc., etc. There is a lot of change when it comes to the mindset. And with these generation differences, there are, as we were mentioning already, there are different values. Like the older people, and I'm gonna be blunt, or maybe I will be now generalizing. So sorry for you guys. Yeah. So I'm gonna be putting people in the boxes. So let's say older people don't care about the environment because we won't be here in 10 years. So I'm gonna buy this plastic bottle and these plastic straws and throw them away on the side of the street because I don't care. While the younger ones will be like, no, the streets, these straws needs to be picked up, otherwise turtles are dying in the ocean. Whatever, I think that everybody saw that video with the turtle having.
Yeah.
So that was a strong emotion with me, and but how do you explain these, and these changes in mindset, that suddenly somebody should change their habits, their I don't know, behavior suddenly because the situation is different?
Through education.
Okay. But no, but then you can get, like these young people always teaching us about new things, and I'm not going to listen,
Yeah, I'm too old to learn.
Too old to
change. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it always has been like this, right? Like older people, even physiologically, older people's brain are not as, let's say, agile and that quick to adapt. So it's not just like
I will
it's
disagree with
it's
you.
also the attitudes, of course. Like attitude is just making it worse.
I will disagree with you.
Okay.
Even people who can't form short-term memory are able to learn new habits.
Yeah, well, but you're talking about young people.
I'm talking about old people. That was like a person in their 50s. They've lost their
and it's not that old. Come on.
That's pretty old. I mean, that's pretty old already. Like when it comes to excuse, like I'm old to do that. And it's proved that neuroplasticity is there for every one of us, and we are able to form new habits when we, for example, move to a new apartment. We are able to get home, although we are not remembering where it is or how it looks like.
So you think it's just excuse, and
I sort of think it's an excuse. On the other hand, I'm not sure how to open up the discussions, so far.
I would say also it's an excuse because you are not there, Gosh, but I can tell you when I turned 40, I got scared. It was big shock to me, like just seeing the number 40, like, oh my God. 30 was the best, like, yes. But 40 was like, oh my, because you literally realize you're in the middle of your lifespan, even though we can die every day, but we know that in average we live up to 80, right? So let's say we are in the middle. So it's like that realization, big 40, oh my God. And then I was like, okay, I already work 22 years. And how long I need to work till my retirement? If they will not remove the retirement, right? So the age for retirement. And then you're like, okay, it's another 25 years you need to work. And usually by this time, you also get tired. It's just like you are not able to cope with the changes or you need more energy to cope with the changes and everything that is happening. And if you want to compete with younger people who have more energy, it's really tough. And you either need to find yourself a job that is not even a job for you because you really like it. Or usually you will see that people tend in this age or older to find jobs where they can stay for maybe 10 years and just do what it's necessary to do, but that's it. Because the energy level is just not there, and you have to find it. And for me, it was like, okay, it's not the end. I'm just in my 40s. It's just a number. Not necessarily means I'm in the middle of of the lifespan, let's say. Let's do something new, because I need to be competitive. I also want to be as good as the younger generation with the newest technology, blah, blah, blah. And I know they can adapt much faster compared to me, because I didn't grow in it, but it needs to be my kicker and not my, what's the opposite word of demotivator? Yeah. So I need to be like, so that's why I started learning new language, to start practicing the brain, right? If I want to prolongate the brain, and keep exercising and all this stuff just to keep up. Because once you give up, that's it. You're just going towards the end, but you have so many years ahead of you. Why to give up now?
Yeah. I have a different story when it comes to these values. I've got a phone call like 4 weeks ago from the company providing me with electricity.
Oh, I thought the one that's selling the silver socks.
No. These were actually a valid phone call, and they called me that now they are making this huge effort to go for the to give people the option to switch to energy from renewable sources, so like solar, wind, and stuff like that. And I can have the energy fully from the renewable sources if I sign up for it. It's going to cost me for the next month's €1, and then it's going to be €3 per month. And I was like, I don't want a higher, I don't want to pay more for my electricity. I want to be green, but I don't want to pay more. So I was stumbled. I mean, I ended the phone call that I need to think of it, and I never called back. And I'm like, and that's why I'm talking about like, oh, there is huge environmental impact, blah blah blah, and we shouldn't think of it. But even me, and I still consider myself young. And I wasn't actually into changing it because it costs me more.
Well, yes, it's valid.
I started to think about the excuse, like, yeah, if they want to be environmental, they should pay, they should change the energy for everyone and just suck it up and then tell everybody like you are paying more, and then that's it. But
I question, why do you need to pay more? Shouldn't it be actually cheaper to produce like green energy?
I think it's because they need to do some subsidiary to the some subsidiary to those producers.
If they really care about green energy, then they shouldn't ask for people to pay for it.
But it's always like that, whatever you do.
I know.
Who pays for it? The people, either through tax or prices for groceries goes up, everything. We pay for that.
Yeah, but that's what made me think, like, how can you change the mindset? How can you change your values suddenly to go even against yourself, like it's gonna crush.
because you have the let's call it family budget or maintenance budget for this, and you already calculated how much money you need, but whatever would just raise it up, you didn't calculate it before, and if you know it, okay, this will cost me because they are now going to raise the amount for this, you're already preparing yourself for that. So it takes, but I'll go again back, one step back. When I said it's the right fit is to have the balance between all ages in the company, because if one of the groups is suddenly higher percentage wise, so like in our company before, it happened that 80% millennials, 20% older generation. you literally couldn't do anything. The vast majority, 80%, was just too big. And the problem that happened there was there wasn't enough time to educate these people on leadership, management, capabilities, accountability, because the change happened so quickly that at the end we see lots of releases, many people leaving, blah, 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 because these people were simply not ready for big positions, not properly trained, etc. And that's, for example, for me, one of the ring bells, and I keep looking at this. As soon as any company has, we need this percentage of women, we need this percentage of, I know in America they have like a racial percentage that you need to have this percentage of African Americans, Asians, Hispanic. They really have percentage quotes for this. That as soon as it would be 50-70% of let's say recent graduates, that's for me a ring bell. Like, that means for me I will need to soon or later start searching for a new job, because if that shifts and the people are not trained properly and it's not there, that won't be good, because I've seen it, what happened 10 years later.
I will play devil's advocate now, and
Okay.
I will ask you, Kat, like, what we were talking about how diversity is beneficial for companies, but if we look at generation gaps specifically, why should actually company focus on having many generations in a group versus just one, for example? Wouldn't it be easier to have just one, let's say, young people in company? As you said, young people, they learn better, they adjust quicker, etc.
They're not tired.
Yeah, yes.
No, I'll tell you why. Because if you have only one group of people, and go back when you were 20 or 18, and you believed in someone, or because you really like that person, or you like their values, you need to have more variants, because you, as a young person, you can learn from each. Same is for me as an, let's say, older person. I learn from young, I learn from elders than are from me. The more younger you are, and if I'm older, the easier I can manipulate with you. And we've seen it many times back in history. And by manipulation, what I can do, if I want to be an asshole and I want my company thrive, and we see many videos of OVB, for example. If you go on YouTube, what's happening there? I'll give you money, really good salaries. I'll give you good salary. I'll give you awesome benefits. And I will create this psychological effect in you that you feel damn good and I fulfill all your needs in that age. And then 3, 4, 5 years later, you realize that you are burned out. Because you will have money, you will have benefits, but I'll use all your time, that you will have no friends, you will have no time for family, because you'll be only working for me and I'll be making lots of money. But you will realize it 5 years later, totally tired, totally burned out, etc. Whereas if you have older generation, you can learn this from the elders, like, no, that's the habit that you would be going to learn from me, or etc. Because you have someone to talk to. But if you have only younger people, he already has a BMW, I want BMW, I'm gonna work even more. But then you have the BMW, but what for if it's just in front of your house and you don't even drive it?
But you just mentioned actually a good reason why companies should hire only young people if they want to earn money. if that's
No,
their
I just
purpose.
said that means that's a very bad company, because that's not a value
Yes.
if you.
But
That's
it's
not
a-
a
it's a-
value if you are misusing the human power.
Well,
That's a
yes.
misusing human power, and the vision is very short vision, 5 years max. But if you are good
you just
company,
change the young people for even younger people of 5 years later, and you still earn
but we
money.
already know the younger people are not being born, because the more educated you are, less kids you have. So you are exactly like we are. Is the word contemplating, or what's the word that we are already using the reservoirs of the earth? It would be exactly you are using all the reservoirs of the humans. And then if the company, if you want to earn, but regularly, not just right now, right here, but regularly, you need to think of the future. It was the same for when I had a mom coming from maternity leave to work. And suddenly she had to take her kids, her child to from kindergarten. But she felt like, because she saw her colleagues, they are still at work, but she needs to leave. And it's like she knows already that she's not giving the exact amount or energy or whatever performance as her colleagues. And I told her, it's okay, don't worry about it, because I'm thinking more in the future. I don't have kids, but I need someone who will be working later to pay my retirement. If I don't support the mothers, then once I'll reach my retirement, even though I pay lots of tax, blah, 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 but because no one else is working there, the budget for retirement will go much smaller. So they might give me only this much of amount, or even nothing, because the reservoirs were just used, right? So I need to think further than just what is right now, right here. And so I told her, you know what? Go home, take your kids from the kindergarten, play with your kid. If you feel like and you want to, and you will find the time, you can work maybe later once you put your kid asleep, if it's needed, or we can make an agreement, come and work only part-time. Whatever works for you, it's better. Why? Because I need to think not only about my future, but everyone else. But if we don't support the mothers, in 20 years, there will be no human resources. And that would mean, that would be my time to go for retirement, 62, let's say. But suddenly the government say, no, you cannot go to retirement because we have no human resources. And by 62, if I will keep working in this type of an energy that I'm going, like, and we work a lot, I can tell you, I will not be able to maintain it. The same type of energy level going past 40 years, right? So it's like a car. How often you change your car? We go every 6 to 9 years. So you need to think of more of the future. And if you want to keep your company, especially if you're building your brand and you want that company have a really good name, even if you're the owner, maybe one day you will not be here, you want to keep the legacy and the brand that you build it up. Teach the others in your company, so they would follow that legacy, and people would want to work in that company, because they will not use you just for the 4 years, but really much longer, and so on.
Is it like playing an infinity game?
The worst part for me is that you realize that people are doing this to another human beings. That's the worst part. And right now I'm rewatching this documentary about the Slovak mafia back in the 90s. And they always start the documentary that the life of mafia person is very short. So they were dying in age between 28 to 38 by killing one another. They stole lots of money. They did, they came to any restaurant and they said, now you have to pay us the fee, otherwise we'll burn down the restaurant, blah, blah. You tell me, and both of you are past your 28. Can you imagine just because 28, boom, someone shoots you? So how much time did you actually have to even spend the stolen money? Or, did that really make you happy? Like, why are you doing this to one another? And now, even though we are not killing each other, meaning that I use a gun and I shoot you, we are still doing this to one another, but through economy, through that I will mentally, literally kill you because you need to do more and more. But what is more? And what for? Show me what kind of good am I doing to other human beings? Shouldn't it be for us? So we can live either longer, more. So, but these are more philosophical questions. But that's something, we need to teach back the people is the values into the human being lives. And we need to educate ourselves because the last thing you really want is to harm another human being.
Why?
I second it. Koláč, why? maybe this for another episode. Why not harm another human being?
And maybe that's how we can end this episode. If you have your own stories, share them with us. Otherwise, 수고하셨습니다.
Bye bye.
Čaute, pekný deň.
This podcast represents our own opinions, experience, and our own ideas. We do not represent any official statement from our employers, and this is not their official channel representing the company.